The sun dipped low over Los Angeles, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. Inside his luxurious home, Elvis Presley was sprawled on a plush velvet couch, a stack of fan mail beside him. The air conditioning hummed softly, a pleasant contrast to the buzzing excitement of his recent movie premiere. He'd just wrapped up a long day of meetings and photo shoots, and all he wanted was a moment of peace. Picked up a newspaper, not one of the gossip rags that always seemed to follow him, but a local city paper. He liked to keep up with what was happening in the world, beyond the glitz and glamour of Hollywood. His eyes scanned the headlines, mostly about politics and local sports. Then a small article tucked away on an inside page caught his eye. The headline was simple, almost mournful. Historic Majestic Theater faces foreclosure. Elvis frowned. The Majestic, the name struck a chord like a half-forgotten melody. He'd visited countless theaters over the years, performed in many, but the Majestic, there was something special about that name. He remembered snippets of conversations, whispers of its legendary past. It was one of the oldest theaters in the city, a true relic from a bygone era, with its grand marquee and ornate interior. He sat up, his relaxed posture stiffening. He began to read, his thumb tracing the lines of text. The article explained the grim situation. The Majestic, built in the 1920s, had been struggling for years. High operating costs, a dwindling audience, and the relentless march of modern entertainment had taken their toll. Current owner, a woman named Martha Jenkins, had poured her life savings into keeping it alive. But it wasn't enough. A massive debt loomed, and the bank was threatening to take possession within a month if the funds weren't secured. The article ended with a plea from Martha, her words echoing a desperate hope. This isn't just a building. It's a piece of our city's soul. We can't let it disappear. Elvis felt a familiar pang in his chest. It was the same feeling he got when he saw someone hurting, or when he heard about a place losing its magic. He believed in preserving history, in keeping the heart of things alive, especially places that brought joy and art to people. He thought of the early days, playing small auditoriums, the raw energy of a live crowd, those old theaters. They were sacred spaces. Put the paper down, but the words refused to leave his mind. The Majestic. He tried to picture it, but his memories were fuzzy. Had he ever performed there? Maybe not, but he'd certainly heard of it. It was a landmark, a place where generations had gathered to laugh, cry, and dream. His manager, Colonel Tom Parker, lumbered into the room, a cigar clenched between his teeth. "Elvis, my boy, you look like you've seen a ghost. Everything all right?" Elvis picked up the paper and pointed to the article. "Colonel, have you seen this? The Majestic Theater. They're going to shut it down." The colonel peered at the page and then shrugged. "Ah, these old places. Happens all the time, Elvis. Sad. But that's progress, isn't it? Concrete and glass. That's what sells now." "Progress?" Elvis scoffed. "Destroying history isn't progress, Colonel. It's forgetting who we are." He got up and walked to the window, looking out at the glittering lights of the city. He thought of all the grand old picture palaces he'd seen torn down for parking lots, all the classic stages replaced by sterile, modern venues. "This Martha Jenkins," Elvis said, turning back to the colonel. "She sounds like she's really trying." "Probably a lost cause, son," the colonel replied, waving his hand dismissively. "Banks don't wait for sentimentality. They want their money." But Elvis wasn't listening. A different kind of thought was brewing in his mind. A stubborn, insistent voice that told him this wasn't just another closing theater. This was different. He couldn't explain why, not yet, but he felt a pull. A sense of obligation, almost. "Get me the number for Martha Jenkins," he told his assistant who had just entered the room, "and find out everything you can about the Majestic Theater, its history, its current state, everything." The colonel raised an eyebrow, a flicker of curiosity in his usually business-focused eyes. "What exactly are you planning, Elvis?" Elvis looked at the newspaper again, at the desperate plea from Martha Jenkins. A spark, small but growing, had ignited within him. "I don't know yet, Colonel, but I'm not going to let a piece of history just fade away without a fight. Not if I can help." He felt a surge of energy pushing aside the weariness of the day. This wasn't about another record deal or another movie. This was about something real, something that mattered. He had to see this theater for himself. He had to understand what was at stake. The Majestic Theater, it seemed, was calling to him. The next morning, Elvis insisted on seeing the Majestic Theater himself. He wanted to go unnoticed, just a regular person walking by, so he donned a simple pair of jeans, a dark jacket, and a baseball cap pulled low over his eyes. His sunglasses were a must, of course. He slipped out of his house with just one trusted bodyguard, Joe, trailing discreetly behind him. The address led them to a quieter part of the city. An area that clearly hadn't seen much development in decades. As they turned the corner, Elvis saw it. The Majestic Theater, it was exactly as he'd imagined. Cole, "Whoa, Mayor!" The marquee, once a beacon of light, was dark and dull, some of its bulbs shattered. The paint on the grand ornate facade was peeling, revealing layers of age beneath. Dust coated the ticket booth window, and a faint, musty smell seemed to drift even out onto the street. A bright yellow foreclosure notice sign was plastered crudely on the double doors, stark against the faded red velvet. His heart sank a little. It looked so tired. But even in its decay, Elvis could see the beauty, the elegance that had once shone so brightly. He imagined the crowds that had once spilled out onto the sidewalk, the laughter, the applause that had echoed within its walls. As he stood there, observing, a small elderly woman emerged from a side door carrying a bucket and a mop. Her shoulders were stooped, her movements slow, but there was a fierce determination in her eyes. She wore a faded apron, and her silver hair was pulled back in a neat bun. This had to be Martha Jenkins. Elvis hesitated, then decided to approach. "Excuse me," he said, trying to keep his voice low and unassuming. "Is this the Majestic Theater?" Martha looked up, startled, her eyes a little weary but sharp. "It is," she said, her voice raspy but firm. "Or what's left of it." "My name is John Smith." Elvis offered a small lie that felt strange on his tongue, but necessary for the moment. "I saw the article in the paper about the foreclosure," Martha sighed, leaning on her mop handle. "Yes, it's true we're fighting, but it's a losing battle, I fear." She gestured vaguely at the dusty entrance. "I'm Martha Jenkins, the owner." "It's a beautiful building," Elvis said genuinely. He walked closer, peering through the glass doors. He could just make out the faded grandeur of the lobby. Martha's eyes softened. "It truly was majestic. My parents bought it in the 30s. I grew up here. Every crack in the plaster, every creak in the floorboards. I know them all." Her voice caught with emotion. "My life, it's the community's heart. We've had everything here. Vaudeville acts, silent movies, big bands, local talent shows. It's where generations had their first dates, saw their first talkie." Dree listened, his heart aching for her. He could feel her pain, her deep connection to this place. He imagined the ghosts of performances past the echoes of laughter and applause. He saw the same passion in her eyes that he felt for his own music, his own stage. "What exactly happened?" he asked gently. Martha recounted the story, her voice filled with a mix of sadness and resignation. "How much do you need to save it?" Elvis asked, cutting straight to the point. Martha looked down at her worn hands. "Total debt with interest in $50,000. And that's just to pay off the bank. We'd still need money for proper repairs, for a fresh start." A single tear traced a path down her wrinkled cheek. "It feels impossible. $250,000. It was a significant sum, even for him, but not $50,000. but not impossible. Not for Elvis Presley. He looked around the empty street, then back at Martha, who was looking at the Majestic with such despair. He saw not just a building, but a dream dying, a community losing a vital part of its identity. He thought of his own beginnings, how important places like this were for young artists, for people seeking escape and wonder. Majestic Jenkins, he said, taking off his sunglasses. He looked directly into her eyes, letting her see the genuine concern. In his, Martha's eyes widened, first in shock, then in disbelief. She took a step back, her hand flying to her mouth. "Elvis Presley," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "I read the article, and, well, I felt something. This theater, it feels important, and I think I can help." Martha looked at him, tears welling in her eyes again, but this time they were tears of dawning hope. "Help," she repeated, as if the word itself was a foreign concept in her world of despair. "Yes," Elvis said, his gaze sweeping over the tired but noble facade of the Majestic. "I can't let a place like this just disappear. Not if I can do something about it. I have an idea, a big one." He looked at the dusty marquee, then back at Martha, whose face was now a mixture of shock and fragile hope. "This theater," he said, his voice firm, "it needs to live, and I think we can make sure it does." He imagined the marquee lit up again, shining brightly, welcoming crowds. He imagined music filling the air, laughter echoing through the halls. The spark he felt earlier had now ignited into a blazing fire of determination. Elvis returned home. The image of the Majestic Theater and the hopeful despair in Martha Jenkins' eyes burned into his mind. He called for Colonel Parker immediately. The colonel, ever the pragmatist, was in his office, sorting through contracts and fan mail. "Colonel," Elvis began without preamble, "I've seen the Majestic and Martha Jenkins. We have to save it." The colonel sighed, taking off his glasses. "Elvis, we talked about this. It's $250,000, minimum plus whatever repairs it needs. It's a money pit, son, a charity case. We're in the business of making money, not giving it away." "This isn't about giving money away, Colonel," Elvis argued, his voice firm. "It's about doing something right. That theater, it's a part of history. It means something to that community, and to Martha." "So what's your grand plan, then?" the colonel challenged, a hint of sarcasm in his tone. "You gonna buy it yourself, because that's a lot of movie royalties?" "No," Elvis said, a new energy sparking in his eyes. "Not buy it, save it. We'll hold a concert. A benefit concert right there at the Majestic." The colonel stared at him, then let out a booming laugh. "A benefit concert in that old dust trap? Elvis, people pay good money to see you in the biggest arenas with the best sound, the biggest lights. You think they'll flock to a decaying old building with leaky pipes and a broken marquee?" "They will if it's for a good cause," Elvis retorted, undeterred. "And if it's me people want to help, Colonel, they just need a reason and a chance." He walked over to a map of Los Angeles on the wall. "Think about it. We announce it, make it a huge deal. The king of rock and roll saving a piece of local history. It's got heart, Colonel. It's got a story. People love a good story." The colonel leaned back in his chair, rubbing his chin. He was a shrewd businessman, and while he often grumbled about Elvis's impulses, he also knew how to turn any situation into a PR opportunity. "It's a huge gamble, Elvis. The logistics alone, an old theater, safety codes, insurance, it's a nightmare." "We'll make it work," Elvis insisted. "We'll get a team, get the best people. We fix it up enough to make it safe. Then we bring in our own sound, our own lights. We make it unforgettable, a one-night-only event. And the money?" The colonel pressed. "You think a single concert, even yours, can raise $250,000 plus the repair costs? Tickets would have to be outrageously expensive." "They'll be expensive," Elvis conceded. "But it's for a cause. We'll make it clear where every penny is going. And we'll get sponsors, big companies, local businesses. They'll want to be associated with something like this. And if we sell out and we will sell out, then we can do it." He paced the room, his excitement growing. "We make it a night to remember, not just a concert, but a celebration of the majestic, of history, of community. It's not just about the money, Colonel. It's about showing people that we care, that art matters, that history matters." The Colonel puffed on his cigar, a cloud of smoke filling the room. Could see the passion in Elvis's eyes, the unshakable determination when Elvis got like this. There was no stopping him, and he had to admit the idea did have a certain appeal. Public goodwill stunt of this magnitude could do wonders for Elvis's image, proving he was more than just a performer. He was a man with a heart. "All right. Hold your horses," the Colonel finally said, a reluctant smile playing on his lips. "Let's assume just for a moment that this wild idea isn't completely insane. Where do we even begin? We can't just announce it tomorrow. The media will eat us alive if we don't have a plan." "Exactly," Elvis said, seizing on the Colonel's shift in attitude. "We need to plan this quietly at first. Get Martha on board as there are with the bank. Then we need to scout the theater properly, see what needs fixing, what equipment we'll need to bring in." "And the band?" the Colonel asked. "They'll need to be on board, to pony. They believe in me and they'll believe in this cause. It's the right thing to do." "This is going to be a logistical nightmare, you know," that the Colonel warned, but the fire in his eyes had clearly been ignited by the challenge. "I know," Elvis said, a grin spreading across his face. "But it's a nightmare worth having. Imagine, Colonel, the Majestic Theater, saved not by some rich patron, but by the people, by the fans, by the power of music." The Colonel chuckled. "You always were a dreamer, Elvis. All right, let's make some calls. But if this goes belly up, don't come crying to me about the headlines." "It won't go belly up," Elvis said, his eyes shining with conviction. The next few days were a flurry of quiet, intense activity. Elvis wanted to keep the initial planning under wraps. He knew the moment word got out, the media frenzy would be overwhelming, potentially overshadowing the actual cause. He wanted the focus to be on saving the theater, not just on his celebrity. First, he brought Martha Jenkins into the fold. He invited her to his home, where she looked utterly bewildered by the opulence. He sat her down and explained his plan in detail. The benefit concert, the fundraising goal, his determination. Martha, still reeling from the surprise of his true identity, listened with a mix of awe and disbelief. "Mr. Presley," she finally said, her voice trembling, "it's too much. I don't know how to thank you." "Don't thank me yet, Martha," Elvis said kindly. "We haven't done it, but we will. You just have to trust me and be prepared to work with us." He explained that he'd need her help with the theater's records, its history, and navigating the local authorities. Martha, though overwhelmed, agreed without hesitation, her eyes shining with renewed hope. "I'll do anything," she vowed. "Anything to save the Majestic." Next, Elvis assembled his trusted team. He pulled in his most reliable road manager, a quiet, efficient man named Bob, who was used to handling complex logistics for tours. He also brought in his head of security, Ben, who could ensure the theater was safe and secure once work began. And of course, his core band members, Scotty Moore and DJ Fontana, were brought into the loop. "Boys," Elvis announced at a meeting, "we've got a mission. We're going to save the Majestic Theater." He laid out the plan, explaining the history of the theater and Martha's plight. Gotti, ever practical, asked, "Elvis, what about the stage? Is it big enough for us? What about the sound system?" "Most of those old theaters." "We'll make it work," Elvis cut in, his enthusiasm infectious. "We'll bring in our own sound system, our own lights. We'll reinforce the stage if we have to. This is something special, something important." DJ grinned. "Sounds like an adventure, boss." "Count me in, Scotty." Though still cautious, nodded his agreement. Their loyalty to Elvis was unwavering. Colonel Parker, despite his initial reservations, proved surprisingly effective once he was on board. He began making discreet calls to lawyers to understand the legalities of the foreclosure and to financial advisors to calculate the exact amount needed. factoring in potential repair costs and concert expenses. He even started reaching out very subtly to potential corporate sponsors, framing it as a unique opportunity for good publicity. The first major hurdle was assessing the theater's condition. Under the guise of a pre-sale inspection arranged by the Colonel's lawyers, Elvis and his team, along with a structural engineer and a sound technician, visited the Majestic. The interior was even more striking than the exterior. Dust motes danced in the shafts of light filtering through the grimy windows. The once plush seats were tattered, velvet torn, and springs exposed. The stage, though still impressive in size, creaked ominously when Elvis walked onto it. The elaborate ceiling with its painted murals showed signs of water damage in several places. Backst area was a maze of old ropes, forgotten props, and years of neglect. "It's worse than I thought," the engineer murmured, shining a flashlight into a dark corner. "Needs a complete overhaul of the electrical system, structural reinforcement, new plumbing. It's not just a concert. It's a full restoration project to make it safe." Elvis's heart sank for a moment, but he quickly pushed the despair away. "How long would that take?" he asked. "Months, maybe," the engineer replied. "And a lot more money than just paying off the bank." "No," Elvis said, looking at the faded stage where countless performers had stood. "We don't have months, we have weeks. We need to do what's absolutely necessary to make it safe for one night for the concert. And then, once it's saved, we can plan the full restoration." The sound technician, a young man named Tawny, looked around. "The acoustics are surprisingly good in here, Elvis. Old theaters often are, but we'll need to bring in every piece of our own equipment and run new power lines." The scope of the project was daunting. It wasn't just paying a bill. It was a race against time to make a decaying building safe and functional for a single high-profile event. Back at his house, Elvis convened another meeting. "Okay, so it's a bigger challenge than we thought," he admitted. "But you're in charge of logistics and sourcing materials for the quick fixes, Ben, security, and coordinating with local authorities for permits. Colonel, you handle the legal and financial side and start making those discreet calls for sponsors. Scotty, DJ, we'll need to start rehearsing and thinking about the set list. We need to give them a show they'll never forget." He looked at Martha, who sat quietly absorbing every detail. "Martha, you're the heart of this. You'll be our guide to the Majestic's history, its soul, and you'll be the face of the Save the Majestic campaign once we go public." Martha, who had seemed a bit overwhelmed earlier, straightened her shoulders. A fire, long dimmed, began to glow in her eyes. "I will do everything in my power, Mr. Presley. Anything." Elvis smiled. "Good, because this isn't just my show. It's our show, all of us, and we're going to make history together." He felt a surge of energy, a sense of purpose that went beyond his usual performances. This was different. This was about a community, a dream, and a beloved old building that deserved a second chance. The secret work had begun, and the clock was ticking. The initial plan was to keep everything under wraps, but in Hollywood, secrets rarely last. Despite their best efforts, whispers began to spread. Trusted journalist, an old friend of Elvis's, caught wind of the special project and called the Colonel. "Is it true, Colonel?" the journalist asked. "Elvis Presley is planning a secret show at the old Majestic Theater." Colonel, ever the master manipulator, feigned surprise, but then, seeing an opportunity, decided to control the narrative. "Well, now I can't confirm anything officially," he said with a chuckle. "But Elvis does have a soft spot for history and for helping people. Let's just say if there was a project like that in the works, it would be for a very good cause. That was all it took." Within hours, the whisper turned into a roar. Radio stations started speculating. Is Elvis saving the Majestic? Became the question on everyone's lips. Elvis decided to embrace it. It was time to go public, but on their terms. He didn't want a full-blown press conference yet. Instead, he recorded a short, heartfelt message. It was filmed simply just him, sitting in a chair, looking directly into the camera. "Folks," Elvis began, his voice sincere and warm. "You might have heard some rumors about the Majestic Theater, and I'm here to tell you they're true. That beautiful old theater, and a wonderful lady named Martha Jenkins has been fighting to save it. Well, I believe some things are worth fighting for." He paused, letting the words sink in. The Majestic isn't just bricks and mortar. It's where generations shared laughter, found comfort in a good story, danced to the music. It's a part of our heritage, our community. He continued. "So we're planning something special, a benefit concert, one night only. All proceeds will go to saving the Majestic, paying off its debts, and making sure its doors stay open for years to come. We need your help. We need everyone's help. This isn't just my show." He ended with a simple "thank you," and "I hope to see you there." The message was broadcast on local TV stations and played on radio. The response was immediate and overwhelming. The phone lines of the Colonel's office, and even at Elvis's home, began ringing off the hook. Fan clubs went into overdrive, organizing local fundraising efforts and pledging support. People shared their own memories of the Majestic, tales of first dates, family outings, and unforgettable performances. Letters poured in, not just from fans but from ordinary citizens, expressing their gratitude and offering whatever help they could. A group of local carpenters called, offering their time to help with repairs. Catering company offered to provide food for the volunteer workers. It was clear that the Majestic and Elvis's determination to save it had struck a chord deep within the community. Martha Jenkins was swamped with calls, her small home buzzing with activity. She gave interviews, her voice filled with emotion as she spoke about Elvis's kindness and the sudden surge of hope. "It's a miracle," she told a local reporter, tears in her eyes. "He just appeared like an angel. I still can't believe it's happening." Meanwhile, behind the scenes, the practical work had intensified. Bob and his team, along with the volunteer carpenters, were making rapid progress on the essential repairs. They shored up the stage, reinforced weak spots in the ceiling, and installed temporary but safe electrical wiring. The grime of decades was slowly being cleaned away, revealing glimpses of the theater's original splendor. Elvis himself spent hours at the Majestic, not just rehearsing, but talking to the volunteers, lending a hand where he could. He helped move old furniture, swept dust from the aisles, and even helped repaint some of the peeling walls back. He wasn't just the star. He was a part of the team, sweating alongside everyone else. He listened to Martha's stories about the theater, learning about its past, which only deepened his resolve. One afternoon, while taking a break, Elvis looked out from the stage at the empty seats still being cleaned. "It's coming back to life, Martha," he said, a satisfied smile on his face. "Can you feel it?" Martha, watching the flurry of activity, nodded, her eyes shining. "I can, Mr. Presley, I really can. It's like the old girl is finally breathing again." The buzz around the concert grew louder each day. People were excited, not just to see Elvis, but to be a part of something bigger. This wasn't just a concert, it was a movement, testament to the power of community and the belief that even the oldest, most neglected places deserved a chance to shine again. The quiet whispers had truly turned into a roar of anticipation, and the stage was being set, not just for a concert, but for a miracle. As the concert date loomed closer, the initial wave of excitement started to collide with the harsh realities of the project. The bank, seeing the media, attention became less patient and more demanding. They wanted proof, not just promises. "Mr. Presley," the bank's lawyer had stated stiffly on the phone to the Colonel, "we appreciate the sentiment, but our deadline is firm. We need the full amount in certified funds by the end of the month, or the foreclosure proceeds as planned." The Colonel relayed the news to Elvis, his face grim. "They're playing hardball, Elvis, and the repair estimates keep climbing. We've done the bare minimum for safety, but even that's more than we budgeted for the quick fix. We're looking at needing closer to $300,000, not $250, just to pay off the bank and cover the most essential, immediate repairs that don't fall under concert set." That meant Ticket prices would have to be very high, perhaps too high for some fans, and there were only so many seats in the Majestic. What about sponsors? Elvis asked, his jaw tight. We've got a few local businesses interested in minor contributions for signage and mentions, the Colonel replied. The thought was a heavy weight on his shoulders. He visited the Majestic again late one evening. The volunteers had left and the theater was quiet, lit only by a few work lamps. He walked onto the stage, the newly reinforced planks feeling solid beneath his boot. But looking out at the rows of seats, still undergoing renovation, he couldn't shake the feeling of the immense financial gap. He knew he could just write a check. He had the money, but that wasn't the point. This was supposed to be a community effort, a show of what collective belief could do. If he just paid for it, it would lose its meaning. It would just be Elvis, the rich star, throwing money at a problem. He wanted it to be something more. He thought of Martha's tired but hopeful eyes. He thought of the volunteers who were working tirelessly not for money but for love of the theater. He had to show them he was just as committed. The next day, Elvis made a bold decision. He called the Colonel. "Colonel," he said, his voice firm and resolute, "I want you to release a statement. Tell the bank, tell everyone that I'm personally putting up $100,000 up front as a down payment to show our commitment and to buy us a little more time." The Colonel nearly dropped his cigar. "Elvis, that's a huge sum. What if the concert doesn't make enough? You'd be out that money." "Then I'm out that money, Colonel," Elvis said, no hesitation in his voice. "But I don't think it will come to that. This isn't just about saving a building. It's about faith. Faith in this community. Faith in my fans. Faith in what we can do when we work together. This will show them we're serious." News of Elvis's personal contributions spread like wildfire. It was a game changer. The gesture, so genuine and significant, ignited a new wave of support. Suddenly, sponsors who had been hesitant started calling. A major beverage company offered to be the primary sponsor, their name proudly displayed on the refreshed marquee, their donation covering a huge chunk of the remaining costs. Local businesses chipped in more generously. The community effort intensified for Majestic. Upholsterers worked late into the night repairing and replacing the damaged seats. Artists from a local art school repainted the faded murals on the ceiling and walls, bringing back their original vibrancy. The local historical society organized guided tours of the theater for small groups, charging a small fee that went directly to the fund. Martha Jenkins watched it, all with tears in her eyes. He really does care. Theater was still old, and it still had its quirks, but it was being reborn. The heavy, musty smell was replaced by the scent of fresh paint and wood polish. The broken lights were replaced, and the marquee was finally brilliantly lit up. The foreclosure notice was gone, replaced by banners proclaiming, "Freezing Elvis Presley." Elvis, seeing the transformation and the outpouring of support, felt the weight on his shoulders lessen. It wasn't just his burden anymore. It was a shared dream, a collective mission. The initial doubt had been replaced by a powerful sense of hope and solidarity. Challenges remained, but they were now facing them together. The Majestic Theater, once on the brink of fading into oblivion, was now shining brighter than ever, a beacon of what could be achieved when a community rallied around a cause. With Elvis's personal financial commitment and the surge of corporate sponsorships, the Save the Majestic concert officially went from a hopeful dream to a tangible reality. Colonel, now fully invested, masterminded the ticket release. They decided on a single high-priced tier for most seats, emphasizing that every dollar directly contributed to the theater's salvation. For a few premium seats, they set an even higher patron price, targeting wealthy philanthropists and dedicated fans. They also allocated a small number of more affordable tickets for local community members who had volunteered their time. The moment the tickets went on sale, the phones exploded. The internet, still a nascent thing for such transactions, nearly crashed. Lines formed around blocks at physical ticket outlets. Within minutes, the entire concert was sold out. Not just sold out, but oversold, with hundreds of thousands of requests still pouring in. The demand was unprecedented for a single night benefit. The media attention went from local news to national headlines. "The King saves the castle," screamed one newspaper. "Elvis's heart of gold shines from Majestic," declared another. Interviews with Martha Jenkins became a staple on Morning Talk, shows her story of struggle and unexpected salvation. Touching hearts across the nation, Elvis himself made a few carefully chosen public appearances. He went on a popular late-night talk show not to promote a new record or movie, but to talk about the Majestic. "Why this theater, Elvis?" the host asked, genuinely curious. "You could have picked any cause." Elvis leaned forward, his eyes earnest. "'Cause it's special, it's got history. Soul, it's seen generations, and places like that, they're disappearing. We need to remember where we came from, what brought us joy, the Majestic. It's a symbol that community matters, that art matters." He spoke passionately about Martha Jenkins, the volunteers, and the overwhelming support from the community. "This isn't just me doing a show," he emphasized. "This is everyone pulling together, and it's incredible to see." His sincerity resonated. Fans flooded the networks with messages of support, sharing their own stories of local theaters they cherished. Other celebrities, inspired by Elvis's initiative, began offering their help. A famous comedian offered to open the show free of charge. A renowned gospel choir offered to perform a special number. The Colonel, always opportunistic, saw the potential for an even bigger impact. He arranged for the concert to be recorded and possibly released as a live album, later, with all album proceeds also going to the Majestic's long-term preservation fund. He also negotiated a deal with a major TV network for a documentary special about the entire Save the Majestic. At the theater itself, the transformation was nearing completion. The grand lobby now gleamed, its marble floors polished, its ornate light fixtures sparkling. The once tattered seats were now plush and inviting. A vibrant red velvet, the stage was robust, equipped with state-of-the-art sound and lighting equipment that Elvis's team had brought in, carefully integrated into the old architecture. The backstage area, while still cozy, was clean and functional. Martha Jenkins walked through the theater every day, often just standing in the middle of the lobby, tears streaming down her face. It was more beautiful than she had ever dreamed it could be again. The dust was gone, the decay banished. The Majestic was alive, humming with a new energy. One afternoon, as Elvis was running through a sound check, Martha found him alone on the stage. Looking out at the rows of newly installed seats, "Mr. Presley," she began, her voice full of emotion. It's magnificent. You did it. You really did it." "We did it, Martha. All of us. Look at this place. It's breathing again." He paused, then looked at her. "Tell me, Martha, what was your favorite memory here before all of this?" Martha's eyes twinkled. "Oh, there are so many, but I remember one night when I was a little girl. My father let me peek from the wings during a big band performance. The music, the lights, the way everyone in the audience was swaying and smiling. It felt like pure magic. That's what we're bringing back, Martha. That magic, that feeling that anything is possible." He looked at the stage, then out at the audience seats. The roar of anticipation was almost deafening in his mind, the echo of sold-out tickets of a community's hope. The Majestic was ready, and so was he. The night of the concert was just days away, and the world was waiting to see a true miracle unfold. The day before the concert was a whirlwind of final preparations, but beneath the frantic energy, an almost sacred calm settled over the Majestic Theater. The last of the cleaning crews were gone, the stage lights were perfectly aimed, and the sound system hummed with quiet power. The scent of fresh paint and polished wood filled the air, replacing the old musty smell. Elvis was there, of course, for a final extensive rehearsal. He ran through every song, every movement, ensuring that every note, every gesture would be perfect. The band was tight, their sound resonating beautifully. In the now restored acoustics of the old theater as he sang, he wasn't just performing. He was envisioning the crowd, feeling their energy, their hopes. He saw Martha's face, the faces of the volunteers, the faces of all the people who believed in the Majestic. This concert wasn't just a performance, it was a promise. During a break, Elvis walked through the empty theater. Taking it all in, the new velvet seats felt soft beneath his hand. The gold accents on the walls gleamed under the stage lights. He paused in the projection booth, imagining the old reels spinning, projecting dreams onto the screen. He even peeked into the dressing rooms, envisioning the nervous energy of performers from decades past. He found Martha Jenkins in the lobby, standing by the now sparkling ticket booth, a look of profound wonder on her face. She was running a hand over the smooth, polished counter. "It's almost like it was yesterday. Isn't it, Martha?" Elvis said softly. Martha turned a tear, tracing a path down her cheek, but this time it was a tear of pure joy. "More than that, Mr. Presley. It's better. It's renewed. It has a future now, and it's all because of you." "Don't say that," Elvis insisted gently. "It's because of everyone, because of what this place means to people. I just gave it a little push." He sat down beside her on a newly installed bench. "Are you ready for tomorrow, Martha?" She nodded, a nervous but excited flutter in her chest. "I am. I've been dreaming of this day for years, but it always felt so impossible." She looked at him, her eyes full of gratitude. "I don't know how to ever thank you for what you've done. You didn't just save a building, Mr. Presley. You saved a part of our souls." Elvis smiled. A genuine, warm smile. "That's why we do it, Martha, to bring a little soul back into the world, to remind people of the magic that's out there." He thought about the magic he found in music, the magic he saw in people's faces when he performed. This saving the Majestic felt like a different kind of magic, just as powerful. Backstage, his band members were feeling the unique energy of the place. Scotty plucked a few chords on his guitar. "Feels good in here, Elvis," he commented. "Different from those big stadiums. More intimate, like we're really playing for each person in the room." "That's exactly it," Elvis agreed. "It's personal. This isn't just another concert. It's a statement. A thank you to everyone who believes." Later that evening, as he left the Majestic, a small crowd had gathered outside, hoping to catch a glimpse of him. They cheered as he stepped out, but their cheers felt different. Not just the screams of adoring fans, but cheers of shared hope, of community spirit. He waved, his heart full. He knew tomorrow would be a night unlike any other. The pressure was immense, the expectations sky high, but he felt a deep sense of calm, a powerful conviction that everything would be all right. He had done everything he could. The theater was ready, the community was ready. And he, Elvis Presley, was more than ready to give them the performance of a lifetime. The stage was set. The curtain was poised to rise, and a miracle was about to unfold. The air literally crackled with anticipation, promising an unforgettable night. The night of the Save the Majestic concert arrived with a palpable hum of excitement that vibrated through the city. Limousines lined the streets, mixing with regular cars, dropping off eager concert-goers. Fans dressed in their finest milled about outside, soaking in the electric atmosphere. The newly lit marquee of the Majestic blazed brilliantly, casting a warm glow over the eager crowds inside. The transformed theater was a sight to behold. The restored velvet seats were filled to capacity. A sea of faces turned towards the stage. The air buzzed with conversation, anticipation, and a sense of collective purpose. Everyone felt they were a part of something historic. As the house lights dimmed, a hush fell over the audience. The spotlight hit the stage, and Martha Jenkins, looking overwhelmed but radiant, in a simple, elegant dress, walked to the microphone. "Good evening, everyone," she began, her voice trembling slightly with emotion. "Tonight we stand in a place that just weeks ago was on the verge of being lost forever, a place that holds generations of memories of joy, of shared moments. thanks to the incredible generosity of one man and the overwhelming support of this beautiful community. The Majestic Theater. A wave of applause, heartfelt and thunderous, swept through the theater. Martha's eyes welled up. I cannot express the gratitude in my heart. This is more than just a building to me. It's my home, my family's legacy, and the beating heart of our community. She paused, took a deep breath, and then, her voice stronger, she declared, "And now, please welcome the man who made this miracle possible, the king of rock and roll, Elvis Presley." The roar of the crowd was deafening, a passionate explosion of cheers, whistles, and applause. The stage lights flared, and Elvis, resplendent in a custom-made jumpsuit, stepped into the spotlight. He looked out at the sea of faces, a genuine warm smile on his lips, and his eyes full of emotion. He felt a surge of energy. Unlike any other performance, this wasn't just for him. He didn't start with a high-energy number. Instead, he picked up his acoustic guitar and began to sing "Love Me Tender," his voice rich and soulful, filling every corner of the beautifully restored theater. It was a moment of pure connection, of heartfelt emotion. After the first song, he spoke to the crowd, his voice humble. "Thank you. Thank you all for being here tonight, for believing in this theater, for believing in a dream. This isn't just my dream, it's our dream, together." Gesture to Martha, who was standing in the wings, her face beaming. "Martha, thank you for being the heart and soul of the Majestic. You kept the light on when it seemed impossible." He launched into his set, a mix of his greatest hits and some of his favorite gospel and blues numbers. The energy in the Majestic was electric. Elvis moved across the stage with his iconic charisma, captivating every single person in the room. The band was on fire, their music echoing off the grand old walls. Every song felt more powerful, more meaningful in this intimate, historic setting. During Heartbreak Hotel, the audience was on its feet, swaying and singing along. During Can't Help Falling in Love, the theater was filled with a chorus of voices singing along with him. It was a truly communal experience. Mid-show, the Colonel joined Elvis on stage, a large sealed envelope in his hand. "Folks," he boomed, "I'm proud to announce that, thanks to your incredible generosity tonight, and the hard work of so many, we have not only met our goal to pay off the bank's foreclosure debt, but we have exceeded it." The theater erupted in another wave of cheers, even louder than before. "The Majestic Theater is officially saved," the Colonel declared, as Elvis held up the envelope, symbolizing the paid debt. Elvis then stepped forward, his voice filled with triumph. "But it doesn't stop here, folks. With the extra funds and all future proceeds from the live album and documentary, we're going to create a long-term fund for the Majestic, to ensure it thrives, to ensure it can host new generations, new dreams for many, many years to come." People hugged, tears streamed down faces, and a feeling of profound joy filled the air. It was more than a concert. It was a victory, a shared triumph. Elvis closed the show with an emotional rendition of "My Way," the lyrics reflecting his journey with the Majestic. As the final notes faded, and the audience rose for a final standing ovation, Elvis looked out at the faces, seeing not just fans, but partners in a shared miracle. He had given them his all, and they had given the Majestic a new life. The king had indeed saved the castle, and in doing so had reignited a spark of hope that would forever burn bright in the heart of the community. The morning after the concert, the news was everywhere. "The Majestic lives. Elvis Presley's benefit concert. A stupendous success," screamed headlines across the country. Total money raised once the final tallies came in was staggering, far exceeding the initial goal. Not only was the foreclosure debt paid in full, but a substantial endowment fund was established for the theater's ongoing maintenance, programming, and future renovations. Elvis, back at his home, felt an exhaustion he hadn't experienced in years, but it was a deeply satisfying one. He wasn't tired from touring or movie shoots. He was tired from pouring his heart and soul into something that truly mattered. He read the newspaper articles, not for the praise, but for the stories of ordinary people who were celebrating the majestic salvation. He received a call from Martha Jenkins. Her voice was thick with emotion. "Mr. Presley," she said, "I just wanted to call and say thank you. The bank confirmed everything this morning. The Majestic is ours. It's truly saved. I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything, Martha," Elvis replied, a warm smile on his face. "Just keep those doors open. Keep the magic alive." The Majestic Theater didn't just reopen. It thrived. The endowment fund providing financial stability and the massive publicity from Elvis's concert. The theater became a hub of cultural activity once more. It hosted community plays, classic film festivals, local music acts, and even workshops for aspiring young artists. It became a symbol of what a community could achieve when it came together, a testament to the power of shared dreams. A special plaque was installed in the lobby near the entrance dedicated to Elvis Presley. It read, "To Elvis Presley, whose generosity and spirit saved this cherished landmark, ensuring its stage will forever shine for generations to come." Elvis, when he saw it during a quiet visit weeks later, felt a swell of humble pride. It wasn't about his name being on a plaque. It was about the life that was now buzzing within the walls of the Majestic. The live album of the concert, titled Elvis, Live at the Majestic, became an instant bestseller, with all proceeds continuing to flow into the theater's fund. The documentary special was watched by millions, inspiring similar initiatives in other cities to save historic landmarks. Elvis had started a ripple effect, reminding people that their heritage was worth fighting for. For Elvis, the experience was profound. It wasn't about the fame or the money. It was about something deeper. He had always loved connecting with his fans through music, but this was different. He had used his platform, his voice, to make a tangible difference in people's lives, to preserve a piece of their collective soul. He felt a renewed sense of purpose, a deeper understanding of the impact he could have beyond the stage. He often thought about the look in Martha's eyes when he first met her, the despair and then the dawning hope. He thought about the volunteers, the sound of hammers and laughter filling the old theater. He thought about the roar of the crowd on concert night, not just for him, but for the Majestic. The Majestic Theater stood tall and proud in the heart of the city, a vibrant monument to a forgotten past that had been given a glorious second chance. It was a place where old memories were honored and new ones were made every single day. And in its continued existence, it carried a silent, heart-warming story. The tale of a king who used his voice not just to entertain, but to save, a dream proving that some things are truly worth fighting for, especially when fueled by a heart full of compassion and the power of rock and roll. The Majestic was more than just a building. It was a living, breathing testament to hope forever echoing with the spirit of the king who saved it.